Hello, ActiveSage here on the Sage channel, and an update came out today that has changed around the way a few things work. Now, before I get onto that, I'm actually going to go ahead and tell you guys something that has been posted on Merrick Rose's dev blog. Now, I believe Merrick Rose is the CEO, he's the guy who owns a Keen software house who makes space engineers. Now, recently they have said that in the near future, they're going to be moving so much away from adding stuff and moving into refining. They're still going to be in the alpha stage. They're not going to beta yet, so they're still going to be adding new features, but they want to, at least for a time, shift over to a way where they'll be refining what's already been added to the game. Now, not necessarily improving performance, but they figure they'll actually end up improving performance anyway, just by fixing bugs they know are there and refining what's already in the game. Anyway, just a heads up, for future updates might not be as flashy as the past ones, and let's be honest, it's a good thing. There's a lot of stuff that needs to be refined. So let's go ahead and actually move on to today's update, and there's a few important things. Now we're going to start off here with these arc furnaces and these assemblers right here. Now, the arc furnaces have now been changed so they can have more things in them. So if I was to go ahead and go into our inventory, we're going to select our arc furnaces on the left, so you can see we have 3 arc furnaces all set up there. Now, not only can you put iron in them, but you can put cobalt as well as nickel into them. Now you cannot put other materials. You can see like gold, you can't put that in there yet, but now we have all those in there. They can indeed go in there. I'm going to go over here and turn them on. So all 3 of these furnaces are now on, and you'll see that they are indeed, if I actually go back to inventory here and search up arc furnaces, you can see they are indeed churning through that stuff, which is pretty dang cool. You can see that it's still going through iron a lot faster than everything else, which is pretty cool. Unfortunately, it's not automatically like shifting that back into this one or something to sort of level the load out between them all, but it's still pretty awesome. Now, what else do we have? Well, we have a new working setup for assemblers. Now, in the past, if you wanted to have a multi-assembler setup, it was useful, but it was a lot of work. You'd have to go to your production tab, and you have to go through the different assemblers and assign them different things, and sometimes they'd kind of hold on to the raw materials, maybe one pulled in before you canceled it. Well, now what you can do is either through your control panel or the production tab, I'll show you control panel first, is find your assemblers. So here we go, we got all 3 assemblers right here. And now, right down here at the bottom, where you can see me selecting and deselecting it, there's this cooperative mode. Now, you don't want this on all of them. One of them is going to be your main assembler, the one you're going to queue stuff up to. So that'll be probably production, whichever assembler shows up right here. So assembler without a number off of it. So we want cooperation mode off on that one. What this is basically doing is turning ones that you have on, cooperation mode turned on to, into slaves of that one. What I mean is they'll just basically try to help this one out. So now that we got that queued up, I'm going to turn them all on, and I'm going to go ahead and tell that first assembler to queue up, let's say, I don't know, 100 computers. And it'll pull in what it needs and start building. I mean, you see that it's dropping by quite a few numbers, but it's only made a few. That's because if we go ahead and look in the other assemblers, because they have this little thing right here turned on, it's actually going ahead and helping out that main assembler to make stuff. So now you can have one assembler up on deck that you can access, and 100 down below, and it'll just quickly churn through stuff, which is really, really nice, and actually makes you think maybe it's time that people start turning down the time speed on a lot of these things, because now you can build multiple assemblers to build stuff quicker. It's really cool. By the way, this button here, this is also the enable cooperative mode, so if you don't want to go through control panel, you can just do it through here. So see, I've turned that off, and now it's not pulling. Now you can actually have 2 master ones. So that other assembler 1 is still queued up building those. So I'll queue up a little bit more. But now that we have assembler 2, we turned off cooperative mode, we're now going to queue up construction components. So it's going to try to build construction components. While assembler 3 is still slave to it. And because it's slaved or enabled cooperative mode, it's going to randomly pull an item from one or the other assembler. So it looks like that time it pulled that. Let's cancel that. This time it just happened to pull one from the other one. You can see it's basically doing a random pull. So if you want to have 2 things building at once, but you have 100 assemblers down below just churning out random stuff, you can queue up 2 different assemblers without cooperation mode on, and then they'll just randomly be giving out those tasks to the ones down below until the original amount you wanted was made. Of course, right now they're still not going to all output to the same spot. They're going to be outputting into their own areas, so you can see it's all a bit spread out, but in the end you still get it all done, and a whole lot faster. It's very, very cool. Another big thing they did today, though, is right over here, and it's the reason I have all these out. Oh, by the way, something I should about, you're probably seeing these edge antennas. That's because the default world size is now 20K km, 20 kilometers. And so it's about 20,000 meters basically from side to side. And these are basically, I stuck them vaguely in the corner, and the center is, you know, vaguely around here. It's actually right around near the top of this rock where I'm aiming actually. But so that's just a heads up. If you're used to building a world and having it unlimited, now the size is just automatically restricted to 20,000. But when you're making your new world, you can still go into the settings and make it unlimited if you like. Let's go ahead though and move on to this here. And by the way, if you do go out there, it's just your ship. If you fly out past that boundary, it gives you a lot of warnings that you're flying towards it, but then your ship just vanishes. So be careful if you're going out there. But anyway, another thing they've done today is they've added this wonderful... Well, they've changed the way damage works. So I'm going to turn this on and fire a missile, and you can see the damage might not be what you're used to. It's slightly reduced, it seems to me, but you can at least blast through it. Now, what you might not know is that they've actually changed also the way it affects damage on the other side. So usually in the past, where if you had a missile hit some armor, a lot of times it would just annihilate everything behind it. Well now, as you can see, only the areas where the metal was actually pierced have actually been destroyed. And I'll demonstrate this again by grabbing yet another one of these large panels. We're going to go with the same type. So bring that over here and pop that right in there. That should be good enough. And we'll hop back in that seat really quickly. And now, I'm actually going to do a spectator mode, and I'm going to fly over there. Oops, sorry, a bit quick. Spectator mode, fly over here, and we'll watch it from both sides. So I can do F9 to control my turret from here with spectator mode still active, F8 to go back to it. And you can see there, no damage. So the blast damage is actually negated by the armor, which is pretty dang cool. And of course we can keep on firing. And you're seeing the flashes through. And there's we go, a little tiny breach there, and if we were to actually fly down there, you can see it's only where it breached through. So now you can design your ships differently to have a better survivability. And of course, if I carry on firing, it's going to keep breaching through. It's pretty cool though, and it's a very, very nice touch. And I can actually go ahead and grab another one, and I believe it's this one right there, if I got the right one. Nope, let me grab it really quickly and set it up for you guys. There we go, got another one set up, and this one is a bit different again, because this one is too thick. So it's basically, it now has more benefit to adding more armor, not just keeping your stuff away from the blast that originally would go through stuff, but now you can actually have it so that the blast will be negated by multiple layers of armor, whereas in the past you would often find yourself having a few missile hits and the stuff inside your ship would just vanish. And this will also help on collision, because so often you collide with another ship, and your ship is actually fine, the enemy ship is actually fine, yet somehow your cockpit or your innards were destroyed, even though the outer side is fine. This should help cut down on that. And you see there, it's blasted through both layers and gotten down into the center, but of course it's a very, very tight hole, and you'd have to keep firing to blast the hole bigger to actually start damaging the innards, really. So, pretty cool. Armor now has a lot more durability to it in that way. Let's go ahead, run down here. This is just another firing platform with some heavy armor in front of it instead. We can now fire. Oh, by the way, that other one is still firing. Let me turn that off really quickly. There we go. Other rocket launchers turned off. And you see here with the heavier armor, it ends up taking a bit longer to cause some serious damage, but it will eventually still get through. But you can see here, the metal can get torn up pretty notably, and you'll still have the stuff on the other side safe, long as the metal is still intact. But we're going to keep on firing and breach it really quickly. You can see little pieces of metal starting to jut through, but as again, it's still steady, so it's not breaching through yet. There we go, there's a breach. And you see it can take quite some time to fully get through there like that. So there we are. Oop, everything's all breached through. I just found out you can still fire these even in F8 mode by clicking. So yeah, pretty cool. Armor is a lot more important than it used to be, and you can of course have different armor setups like this where maybe you'll feel safer having a gap and then a hit in. I don't think it actually makes too much difference. We'll do a quick test. I bring that down, line that up. It should be pretty good. If you don't know, I'm using the Control-C, Control-V stuff. That's been in for a while, and then the Control and mouse wheel to bring whatever I'm copying and pasting closer to me. So our target's a bit off, but that's good enough, I'd say. And now we can go ahead and buzz over, and we can see that we have a small gap there, and we begin firing. And as per usual, even if there was stuff in here, it wouldn't really be damaged until this armor was truly breached. But now we of course have this armor that'll be breached, and we'll have a nice little gap before it even begins damaging the next layer. You can see this armor right here is absolutely perfectly fine, whereas in the past the blast might have actually caused some damage to it. And there we go, I think it's actually breached through now and started hitting the next one, but of course the stuff on the other side is absolutely fine. And remember, you're seeing the graphical explosion go through, but the actual stuff is not being damaged yet. Maybe in the future we'll actually see the blast itself reflect the damage being done or not being done, but for now the blasts are slightly bigger than the actual hits. There we go. So that took a while to blast through. Anyway, moving on from this, we do also have, I can demonstrate the armor if we were to use a Gatling gun or so. So I can just come over here and show you guys the shooting of the armor with a gun. So let's go ahead and hop into here, turn you on and control you, and aim you up. And you can see there, it's pretty sturdy. I thought it might be worth showing these. It's been quite some time since we've actually seen any real damage comparisons between heavy armor and light armor. So you can see I'm blasting away at this, and it's just very, very, very slowly dinted through. And of course, the other stuff, as per with the explosives, would be fine. And let's just really quickly make sure it is actually a damage comparison. Bring over a light piece of armor. We'll stick that right there for a second while I delete this. Now we'll bring this back down right there. There we go. And so we can do a nice little damage comparison on this as well. So, and you can see the edges that sort of disappear. It's actually seems to be, yeah, this is definitely a little bit tougher, but it's still, yeah, it's definitely a lot tougher. But of course, it's a Gatling gun. You don't often see Gatling guns actually piercing stuff. Last two things I have to show pertaining to armor is actually small ship armor. So I'm going to use spectator mode. I'm going to buzz over here, and we're going to grab the armor pieces. It's most the same as what you already saw, so I'm just going to go with the bog standard thin piece and fly this over here to our combat platform and park it right here, nice and close, that way we can actually see it. And I thought the turret was auto-targeting it for a second. So let's hop in here, control the turret, and we can go ahead and begin firing on this. And you see the heavy armor is indeed dinting away and taking some damage, but if we were to go in spectator mode, and by the way, spectator mode in, actually that seemed to breach it pretty quickly. That's pretty good. Gatlings, but you can see, of course, it's only breached right there. Mainly it's about blast damage, this update, but it is pretty cool to actually see the damage comparisons now that we haven't done in a while. But yeah, as I was saying, if you go in spectator mode while controlling a turret, you do indeed end up with a turret overlay in spectator mode. Let's go ahead and grab a light piece of armor just so we can compare the light armor to the heavy armor when it comes to shooting it with one of these Gatling turret things. Oops, didn't mean to paste that moving. There we go. And hop back into this thing here. By the way, if you do not know the spectator mode controls, they're F6 to get back into your body, F7 for locked to your body, F8 for completely freedom, and F9 for controlling your body, but your camera's locked at wherever you last left. Anyway, let's go ahead, hop back in here, and oh, wait, we got #1 button to switch to controlling that turret again. And you can see it definitely eats through it a lot quicker, which is actually what I'd expect it to eat through it about that quick for a small ship armor. It's pretty cool. And you see I've actually cut out the centerpiece. Now, one last test I am going to do with these is I actually believe I have... Oops. Let's grab it right... Okay, right here. Took me a minute to find it. Sorry. This is heavy armor covering light armor. So I can go ahead and grab that. Bring that down here. We'll bring it to the missile firing because missiles are the main ones that have been updated today. And we'll paste that right there. Yep, that works good. We'll hop back in our body. Run back down to where we were a second ago. There we go. And hop in here, and this, the idea is, in the past, if you had a missile that damaged light armor being much weaker, because the blast damage would go through the exterior heavy armor and then damage the interior armor, it would completely shred everything you have on the inside. But now, of course, if we were to go ahead and fire these missiles... Oop, right, I gotta switch the controls again, 1 second. There we go. So if I go ahead and fire these missiles, now you'll see that it's damaging the heavy armor, but of course the light armor is completely protected now because of the outer shell of heavy armor, which is pretty nice, which means your hallways are not going to instantaneously explode during rocket battles, which is a pretty good improvement. And you can see here, even though, of course, we're seeing these huge flashes of light, it wasn't until that heavy armor was actually breached right there that we ended up actually seeing something. And the way I can sort of show the breach a bit better is to actually, let's hop out of this, do a bit of a semi-repair on it, which is put some armor down, take it away. That'll straighten out all the armor below it, and you can see that we did indeed have a singular piece breach right here, and it moves all the way through now. Pretty dang cool. And of course you might expect this to work the other way around, where maybe if you have light armor on the outside for whatever reason, it being damaged would very quickly destroy the interior heavy armor. So I should have one of those over here. Give me 1 second to grab it. There it is. So let's grab that and line it up. Again, right here. I don't think distance really makes much of a difference, so I'm just bringing these closer and closer. Actually, we'll go ahead and paste it over here just in case distance does make a bit of a difference. This will make sure it's not a whole lot closer, so paste that there. So there we go, got that pasted in position. So now we're going to go ahead and fire at it. And of course the light armor very quickly finds itself dented and damaged, but the heavy armor on the backside, as you can see, is pretty much unscathed. Oh, dear, we do indeed have a small bit of damage there. Let's go ahead and check to see, using the same way we just did a minute ago. So we'll paste that down, remove it, and you can see there it has indeed already breached a singular piece of the light armor metal and started damaging the stuff on the back. But unlike the past, that only appeared to be damaged once the front layer was completely destroyed. It is a shocking amount of damage, so it does look like, unfortunately, the actual heavy armor is being dented more than it actually should be, just because the light armor is indeed deforming. So we'll keep firing, and yeah, you see usually a single layer of light armor, as we showed earlier, can actually take a few hits without deforming much, but this one seems like it's deforming a bit. It is a possibility though that we're seeing this deformation just because we don't have anything on top of it to sort of prevent that deformation from happening. Let me go ahead and do a cutaway layer just so we can get a proper test here. So again, doing this, you can see how much stuff we will have lost. A fair amount has been destroyed. I'm going to completely remove this now, and I'm actually going to replace this center section here with just heavy armor. So we'll place that in there. And now what this will show us is if a missile hitting that one side does actually dent the other side. This is just a comparison, because before, when we were doing these tests, we had the stuff on the back that showed damage to that. But now, since we just have this, we can see that yes, indeed, it does work as we were hoping. It does dent the other side, but it's not actually going to damage anything on the other side. So if we did have those machines there, they would not be being damaged until the actual metal is breached. And we won't know it's breached until, I suspect, we have explosions. Yep, there we go. So, yeah, pretty good. This is a great update for armor and actually having your armor stuff set up as you'd like. What you might want to see, actually, is also the small ships being struck by missiles, so I will actually do that using this turret right here. So I'll go ahead and turn this on, and I have control over it. But of course, I'm going to need to bring stuff over, so let me do that. So there we go. I just brought over a little piece of light armor for a small ship. We'll hit a single missile, and you can see it's actually made a small hole and instantly destroyed one of those. And unfortunately, this came towards us. Can I bump this away from us? Slightly unfortunate. I suspect if I fired now, I would destroy my own thing. Not so ideal. But you can see, though, it did indeed attempt to block the damage before actually managing to drift towards us. And it did actually prevent everything inside being destroyed by that missile. It just blasted its way through one little opening and then caused this damage. That one actually destroyed a lot more, I suspect. Not exactly sure how, but you can see it definitely did. Anyway, let's go ahead and use the heavy armor real quick. So there we go. Here we are with a heavy armor piece for a small ship. Let's fire a missile into that. And you can see a much more blocked amount of damage. I was want to say a much bigger dent, actually. The dent area looks a lot bigger, but the actual amount of damage done is, well, much smaller, considering we can actually still see that the other side is intact. Let's once again copy and paste this into a position worth shooting. A little farther away, I think, because hitting it so close seems to cause it to come towards us, and not do that. Dear, dear. There we go. So let's go ahead, hit it one last time, and there we go. You can see once again it did indeed block all of the damage. So heavy armor on small ships is also pretty hefty, but let's just hit it a few more times. I suspect we'll notice, yeah, it did finally get through there, or it could have been the blast sort of sneaking around the other side. Yeah, pretty cool though. It's actually a lot better than it used to be, of course, as I'm sure you're aware. Anyway, let's move on from that. There's one last little thing, and that is well, there's two last little things. One is way down here. I should have told you about it earlier. That is actually for things like this. So help others button. So this is a large welder. And now if you got a welding ship or station, you can now access the welder's functions, and you can do help others. What that means is if you're building a block and you weren't the one that originally placed the computer layer or whatever, you're not going to have ownership of it. So if you're just helping your buddies out and you're building a ship, you're not going to be randomly taking ownership over of their pieces of their ship. It'll still be theirs, because even though you might be placing the computer layers using your machine that's owned by you, it's set to help others, and it's not going to take ownership. Pretty cool. Another thing is the ability to actually toggle on and off antennas broadcasting. So you can press, it's not actually working here on this, but it's actually O for your actual character. But if we were to go into here and find the antenna right here, you can now enable broadcasting. So you can turn that off, and now you can see the antenna that was up there, it is now shut off. So I can actually go ahead and turn that back on. And right there. Now, what this actually does, though, is it prevents you from being able to communicate with things, but you can actually still see other antennas coming in. So let me go ahead and press O on my character, broadcasting off, you can see at the very bottom left, it actually shows it up there. That means if somebody else is walking around in this world, they'll no longer see my name floating everywhere, because of course you have a broadcast range of 250 meters. And then of course I can turn it back on and people will be able to see me. If I have broadcasting off, I cannot actually access anything else. But if I was to actually go ahead and turn broadcasting back on, I should be able to access... Oh, okay. Yep, small cut there. I found out that I didn't have that antenna owned and all the other ones were too far out of range. But now with broadcasting on, I can indeed select everything again. Once again, to demonstrate broadcasting off, if I go into here, can't see anything because I'm no longer broadcasting. But of course, my name would be hidden. And that works the same for ships. If I was to hop in a ship here and get right in there, press P to disengage our docking and fly away. I'm sure I burnt up that thing maybe a little bit. But now if I press O on, oh, well, O doesn't work. But if I was to go ahead and select its antenna, I can, of course, enable broadcasting, and its antenna is now on. And of course, once its antenna is on, I can communicate with other things. But of course, if its antenna is off, I cannot do so. Pretty simple and straightforward. Not exactly ideal, I guess. I was hoping that when I first read it that it would actually just hide the name and you'd still be able to communicate. Because of course, sometimes it can get a bit cluttered when you have tons and tons of ships and they all have antennas, but I don't know, I guess it's alright for now. Maybe there'll be an option in the future just to hide the thing. Another thing they said they did today was they stopped missiles from blowing up the second you fire them. That seems like it might be true. I'm not exactly sure on some things. Of course, let's get ourselves up to a speed. There we go. We should be going... Oh, let's go ahead and disable our inertial dampeners and fire, so everything seems to be good. We go ahead and aim this way and fire. Missiles seem to be working a lot better than they were in the past. Let's do some actual turning and firing. And we'll see if we blow up. Shall we? It looks like they might have fixed it. We'll find out in a second here as I do some silliness. Yep, and just before this update came out, I did actually do a test, and if I was drifting in this direction, firing missiles that way, if it'll reload, there we go, no issue. But if I turned this way, the new missiles would still try to go the other direction, but it looks like they fixed that. So maybe we can actually have a dogfight again without the missiles instantly destroying us. Anyway, guys, that's a pretty in-depth look at this update, I'm pretty sure. I'm sure I missed a few little things. There have been a bunch of other fixes. Check the description down below and you'll see more patch notes down there. It's pretty awesome though, and I'm very happy with this update overall. It was about time they started working on refining some things. I do hope though, because as Merrick had said in his little dev blog post, they are wanting to actually go ahead and add scenarios to the game, and I'm hoping that means that eventually maybe we'll also end up with some AI, because it's a little hard to make combat scenarios and stuff without some form of AI. So maybe we'll see that added in. Anyway guys, thanks a bunch for watching, and I will see you next time. And I'm actually hitting those targets like I wanted. I'm very happy with that.